Silent Hill 2 was the first in the series to be released on the PS2. I remember going to the mall after work one day, shortly after its release, to buy both the game and the console. And it looked fantastic. The fog actually looked like fog. It had detail, unlike in the first game. James resembled a human being, rather than a low-poly model, with weird angles. You could read some of the posters and graffiti on the walls. It was a bit confusing at first. Where was Alessa? Where was the blood and the rust? But it soon became clear that it was a different kind of game than the first, a game that many of the fans ended up liking even better. James initially comes off as another everyman, not unlike Harry Mason, and indeed, he even seems to be searching for a missing loved one, just like Harry was. But he wasn't going on a vacation with his daughter. He had been summoned to Silent Hill when he received a letter from his wife. His deceased wife. We learn this as he steps out of the observation deck toilets. He grabs a map from his car and takes a long winding path to Silent Hill on foot. Angela is the first of the other characters that we meet after our very long walk through the woods. She's looking for her mother, and we startle her at first. Angela is one of the best and most complex characters in the game, through her dialogue and some memos in the game, we learn of her history of abuse. At the time, this was not a subject that games often attempted to tackle. Her responses to other characters are very well done, like how she starts coming at James with the knife in the apartments. Her past abuse haunts her and causes her to distrust men. She tells James it's dangerous to go into the town, but he doesn't care. Like the forest path to the graveyard, the roads from the cemetery into the town are long and lonely. They put so much distance between James and his car that it seems unlikely he would want to give up and turn back. So we press on. The first monster encounter is also handled well. James follows smears of blood on the road to a boarded-up area where he meets a lying figure. He has little choice but to grab whatever is available to defend himself, which ends up being a piece of wood. The city isn't quite the same as it was in the first game. It seems more open, and we don't see the residential area of old Silent Hill. What brings it together are little things like signs for the amusement park and the map, which helps us to understand where we are in relation to those areas. We also don't revisit Alchemilla Hospital, but instead, we follow Laura into Brookhaven. This is also the first game where we have a companion following us for part of the game. Maria bears a strange resemblance to James' wife, Mary. Her name is even similar, but the similarities seem to end there. She's more outgoing and flirty. She dresses more provocatively. Much has been said about Pyramid Head, also known as the Red Pyramid Thing. He's probably the most recognizable monster in the entire series, especially to those who haven't played the games. His form is based on the executioners that existed in Silent Hill's past, but this form of him belongs only to James. He's also unique in the fact that he can't be killed by James. There are fights with him, but try as he might, James can't really injure him with bullets or melee weapons. We just have to dodge him and try to stay alive. Like Maria, Isabella Rossellini's character in Blue Velvet works in a bar. The shape of the stage is identical to the stage in Heaven's Night. She lives in Deep River Apartments, which has a name similar to Blue Creek Apartments in Silent Hill 2. Another possible similarity is that Rossellini's character is the victim of sexual abuse, and wields a large kitchen knife, much like Angela. One scene with very obvious similarities is the closet scene. James witnesses a scene between Pyramid Head and a mannequin, which Jeremy Blaustein has stated that the sexual symbolism was intentional and was discussed with the Japanese team. In Blue Velvet, Frank, Dennis Hopper, huffs drugs and sexually abuses Dorothy while Kyle MacLachlan's character hides in the closet. Both Frank and Pyramid Head wear masks of a sort, and Pyramid Head moves like he's inebriated. Both James and Jeffrey have a gun while in the closet. The Lakeside Hotel is based on the real-life Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, where The Shining was filmed. Masahiro Ito has also been inspired by many films and artworks, and used these to help him create his monster designs. Francis Bacon is a painter that Ito has often cited as an influence. Bacon is also my favorite artist. A figure in Bacon's second version of Triptych 1944 was the inspiration for the closer's mouth. This was a later version of his famous 3 studies for figures at the base of a crucifixion, showing his interpretation of the Greek Furies. Bacon has described some of his recurring themes by saying, "We are meat, we are potential carcasses." The hanging bodies in the room where you fight Eddie particularly resemble some of Bacon's paintings with sides of beef. Since he often had figures with a sort of frame around them, I had assumed Ito was directly inspired by these in the many framed figures in the games, including some figures in the first game. However, he has cited Isamu Noguchi as an inspiration for the hanging bosses, his work Death Lynch figure. Of course, it's also possible Bacon was an influence on Noguchi. Other artists that have similar frames in their art include Joel Peter Witkin, a photographer who used actual corpses in his painting-like photos. Some of his works seem to be clearly related to the imagery in the film's Jacob's Ladder, as well as Nine Inch Nails' video Closer. The scene where James is wheeled on a gurney through the hospital is also based on Jacob's Ladder, which has monsters with no eyes as well. Ito has also said that the nurses' heads represent Mary's swollen head under the pillow. The way she shakes her head represent Mary struggling to free herself, but also resemble some of the movements in several David Lynch films, as well as some scenes in Jacob's Ladder. Overall, Silent Hill 2 still holds up well. With the fan-released Enhanced Edition, the PC version has quickly become the best-looking version of the game. However, it's worth playing regardless of whether you can find it on console or PC. The original console versions come in second to the PC version, and due to the problems with sound and graphics, the HD collection for PS3 comes in last. However, if the only version you have is the HD collection, it's still better than not playing it at all. This game set the bar for story complexity and psychological horror much higher than it had been before, and remains the best-loved game in the series by many.